Several food banks in the UK are going to be closed on the day of Queen Elizabeth's funeral. They really said, "We are going to starve poor people in your honor, Lizzie." The British monarchy, folks.
Tasty sandwich time. By far the weirdest part of capitalism is the personification of corporate entities on social media for free advertisement. Like when Chipotle comments on a video. I hope that everybody who runs these accounts eats Scrabble and gets sick. It's so disingenuous. Fuck you.
If a guy has a preference of their body count, do you think that's
Why do you have a
childish?
preference? I was discussing this with my sister the other day. People think like preferences is just a get out card. Where does your preference come from? Your preference isn't just born with you when you come into this world. Your preference is created off your environment, what you see society doing. That is how your preference is created. I never came out of the womb liking men who were just 6 foot. Society made me believe that it is normal for a guy to be taller than a woman in a relationship. So naturally, women want men who are a bit taller. So where is that preference coming from?
And your experiences.
Your preference for wanting a woman who's less experienced comes from patriarchy. It comes from women, historically being policed through their sexuality and society not seeing that sex is for women. That is where your preference for having a low body count is coming from. It's coming from not wanting your boys to laugh at your face and be like, "Oh, beat that." Okay, yeah, you beat that, but now she's with me. Okay, so what? Like, am I going to pretend I've never been with a guy who girls have fucked before? Yeah, I have. What can I do? Like you said before, we are not possession. We are real people. So yeah, just because you fuck 100 people doesn't mean that that girl should vanish and turn into dust. She too deserves love, respect, and companionship.
Did you know that on several occasions, Cuba could have become one of the United States of America? As the Americas were winning their independence, many US leaders saw Spanish territories as up for grabs. Thomas Jefferson even said, "I candidly confess that I have ever looked on Cuba as the most interesting addition which could ever be made to our system of states." President James Polk even sent a $100 million offer to Spain to purchase Cuba. Cuba had a huge economy of sugar plantations, and it was all fueled by brutal slavery. Spain was losing its territory in the New World, and the plantation owners were really worried that Britain could take over and the British abolitionists would free all their slaves. They were the ones who wanted to join the United States and become a slave state to preserve slavery. They were the ones who actually forked up the $100 million to try to purchase Cuba from Spain for the United States. When Spain said no, they hired private armies to invade Cuba. I mean, they just stole Texas.
I don't even like money. I don't care about money. Money means nothing to me. Is money not cool anymore? In that case, you could pay your taxes. Taxation is theft. Well said. Okay. And growing your fortune using public infrastructure and social programs to support your business and employees and then hiding your money when it comes time to pay for those things would be extremely clever. But you don't care about money. It means nothing to me. Some of us have evolved beyond needing fancy things. I'm actually less interested in fancy things and more interested in the ability to make decisions based on feelings other than financial terror. So you're afraid of the grind?
So today I went to the White House, so I wanted to do a little vloggy vlog. It's 12 a.m., so sorry if I'm tired. So here's me in security line. Police, oh, she's so cute. The line was so long to get in. And just after we got in, we waited in the hot sun at the IRA celebration. There's Sean and Elise and all these people. And then there were some performances. Nancy Pelosi's speaking in this. Dark Brandon made an appearance. And then I went to the embassy for the NCIA, which is the National Congress of American Indians. That was really cool. I met some really cool people there. And they were talking about a sovereignty run, which I will talk about in a later video. It was really, really cool. That was great. Met some awesome people. And then there was like a bunch of after parties. There was a bunch of them, but I only went to one. But like Chuck Schumer was there and Vice President Kamala Harris's husband. It was good. It was a little bit exhausting though, because nobody was talking about indigenous issues, even though it's like climate bill. And nobody was talking about the fossil fuels with this bill, which I can talk about in another video.
Do you have any idea what's been going on in Japan? If not, please take the time to watch this video and educate yourself. Just recently, the Nuclear Regulatory Authority approved to discharge more than 1 million tons of contaminated water into the ocean. This contaminated water comes from Fukushima's #1 nuclear power plant by TEPCO. Now, due to storage costs and real estate implications, a plan was created to discharge this contaminated water into the Pacific Ocean. This contaminated water comes from a nuclear meltdown after the 2011 9.0 earthquake in Japan. In just 5 months, this radioactive contamination was detected in plants, animals, and the food supply within the US. Scientists are worried about the effects this radioactive waste could have on the environment. Now, there has been many alternative solutions and recommendations directed towards this problem, but one of the best things that we can do right now is just bring awareness to it. As I always say, a like, comment, and share goes a long way to help bring awareness to these issues. Thank you.
I saw this article, and the first thing that popped into my head was, Imani was right. I always knew Imani was right, but it's nice to see it out loud that Imani was right. So Imani has been talking for months about the link between pandemics and eugenics and how post-pandemic you see a rise in eugenic language and ideology and like an explosion of health and wellness and all that good stuff. Like case in point, thin is in, right? But not like normal thin, like early 2000s thin is back in, which is a very scary kind of thin. And not only that, but the link between like wellness and the alt-right pipeline, and it's just so mind-blowing to see it like laid out here so nicely by NPR. And so like on the surface, the article isn't bad because it's talking about how some people are seemingly immune to certain things, right? Like they give an example of people who have had multiple HIV exposures and have never gotten sick, people who have made it this far into 2022 and never gotten COVID. Like what makes them different? What makes them special? Scientists want to know. And all I could hear in my head was Imani going, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger."
Did you know that directly following the Russian Revolution and throughout the 1920s, young socialists had a distinct fashion style? In a 1925 issue of Robotnica magazine, which roughly translates to working woman, this style is discussed in a little more detail. Indeed, young socialists had apparently developed their own distinctive fashion style. The protagonist of one story had hair cut short in the Komsomol fashion. She wore a scarf as red as a poppy and a short black skirt. On her shoulders sat a devilish garment, a leather jacket. The leather jacket was an unequivocal sign that this young woman, Marusia, had joined the communists and was devilish only to her backwards father. By the end of the story, despite her iconoclastic appearance, she had managed to convert not only him, but his entire village to socialism. And you'll see that many early paintings or paintings about the revolution or directly after will show young women dressed in this way. Red scarf, leather jacket, and a relatively short black skirt for the time.
Here are 5 things I would never do as someone who works in the labor movement. Amazon edition. 1. Own a Ring camera. Amazon does share surveillance data with the police without your consent, which can get you and your neighbors in trouble. 2. Buy the new smart vac that Amazon's coming out with. They map your home and then give that data to police so that if police raid your home, they can map it. 3. Trust reviews or search results. Amazon pushes the products that they make the most money off of first in the algorithm. You just can't trust that you'll get a quality product. 4. Not pay attention when I'm on the road next to an Amazon delivery truck. They push their drivers so hard. I'm talking 400 packages in 10-hour shifts. A package every 2 to 3 minutes. No breaks. Humans can't work like that. So yeah, there are high accident rates. And finally, 5. Keep this information myself. Share this TikTok with someone who's trying to be a smarter, more conscious member of society.
Okay, so I saw this video and I wanted to stitch it, but for some reason it wouldn't let me. But go watch the creator. They talk about the new Torrid line and the models and stuff. And I wanted to talk about why Thin is In has come back so fast. So a lot of you might have heard of something called the mid-sizification of plus size creators or like plus size clothing. If you look up the hashtag midsize on TikTok, it is filled with people who have completely flat stomach or simple things like no visible belly rolls or back rolls or stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying that these people don't have these things, but majority of the models that we see on the runway and that we saw during this era of inclusion were actually mid-sized people who honestly bordered on being straight sizes. I made a YouTube video talking about this with Barbie Ferreira as an example for Euphoria. I broke down and analyzed her costume, and in 90% of the show, she's wearing items that do not go past a size large. So in order to fake inclusivity, they take somebody who is a size 0 or a size 2, and they place her next to somebody who is a size 6 or an 8, and then they use the scripting and the story directing to cinematically gaslight you into thinking that that character is plus size. Brands like Torrid, who go to a size 30, push their ad campaigns out with mid-size models because TikTok has helped shape the definition of plus size into mid-size, therefore making everybody who's mid-size need to be skinnier, ushering in the era of the ultra thin again. I saw people also saying Kim Kardashian got her BBL like taken out or reversed. I'm not going to speak and say she didn't, but that's a really hard surgery to get reversed, and it's extremely dangerous, and that she's openly spoke about how she's lost weight, how she's done keto, how she lost all the weight to fit into Marilyn's dress. It's just becoming okay to talk about losing weight and being skinny again.
This video is going to hurt your feelings, but sorry, not sorry, all right? Let's talk about being anti-racist versus non-racist. Most of y'all think you're anti-racist, but you're actually non-racist, okay? And the goal is to become anti-racist. Here are the 3 C's of being non-racist. You like to do what's comfortable, you like to do what's convenient, and you like to remain in your complacency. You want to be complacent, okay? So you like to watch free videos on social media because you don't have to do anything, you don't have to sacrifice anything, you're not spending any money, you're not doing anything. It doesn't require any sort of work or sacrifice on your part. Now, if you are anti-racist, you are committed, you are consistent, and you actually care. And because you care, you know that just consuming free videos on social media is not doing the work. You need to invest in this. You need to be paying for this education. And you know that you have to stay committed and consistent to this work on a regular basis. It's a lifestyle, it's not a diet. So are you really anti-racist or are you just non-racist? Because they are not the same.
I got us donuts. Those are so bad for you. Oh no, are they moldy? I mean, are they poisoned? Are you allergic? No, I'm just saying. You're judging my food choices based on a false standard of health again, aren't you? Guilty.
Diet culture, fat phobia, and systems of oppression have created false hierarchies of food, and it shows up everywhere.
For instance, harmful thought patterns like earning food through exercising, or that dessert is the reward for the punishment of eating vegetables.
Remember that you do not need to earn food.
We are all incorrectly taught from a young age that our size, and therefore the foods that we eat, are markers of our self-worth. Moralizing food can lead to harmful relationships with food and disordered eating.
Instead of focusing on good and bad choices, try to approach food with neutrality in mind.
The only foods that are bad for you are foods that contain allergens, poisons, and contaminants, or food that is spoiled or is otherwise inedible.
Eat without guilt, regardless of what society says.
Smarter in seconds.
Okay, stay with me. What I have come to learn after many years of studying, thinking, and writing about power and oppression is that there will always be factions of marginalized people who do not want collective liberation from the oppressive systems we live and die under. Liberation is simply too big, too daunting, too difficult to fathom. What these people resort to instead is the creation and maintenance of systems in which they have the opportunity to act as oppressors and wield what little power they do have over others. If the world must be structured through hierarchies, then marginalized people who are not fully committed to liberation or the dismantling of these hierarchies must find a way to never be at the bottom. For those marginalized by sexuality or gender within a cis heteronormative system, having this outlook on power and oppression, whether or not they are conscious of it, means that groups who are even more obscure and hieroglyphic to dominant society must be under their boot. Stop putting people under your boot. Also, read this book. It's really good.
Today I'm making eggs in a hole because I have OCD. Living with emetophobia and contamination OCD can look like a lot of things, but for me, a lot of the time it looks like not eating breakfast. Mostly because a lot of breakfast foods are things that my brain sees as contaminants, like eggs. But today I decided I was going to challenge myself by not only eating breakfast, but by cooking with 2 ingredients that my brain really doesn't like, which is eggs and fresh fruit. I wanted to eat raspberries, but I was struggling a lot. I was trying to rinse them off when I noticed one berry had mold on it, which meant in my head that the entire batch was contaminated. So I put them away and I got blueberries instead. In hindsight, I wish I had just thrown away the one moldy berry and eaten the raspberries and challenged myself, but that's not always feasible for me, and that's okay. I was challenging myself by eating this meal, and so I was going to do my best, and next time I probably will eat the berries. But here's the meal all together, and the most important ingredient, of course, is my daily dose of Prozac. And there it is.
This video reminded me of this line that Marx brought up in Capital, specifically in chapter 10, The Working Day. In this chapter, he's talking about how the working class peoples in England were sleeping in these houses where they were like body to body. But he makes a note that this physician of the Board of Health declared that the minimum air for each adult ought to be in a sleeping room 300 and a dwelling room 500 cubic feet. So anytime I see these videos, like, this is not a way to live. Fuck landlords, man.
Believe it or not, The Little Mermaid is gay. The Little Mermaid was published in 1837 and despite Disney renditions is an incredibly tragic tale of unrequited love, where a little mermaid sacrifices everything, has her voice taken away, and endures incredible physical pain in an attempt to be with the one she loves. But when she cannot make him love her back and he chooses another, she perishes. Why is this attached to gay history? Well, it was written by Hans Christian Andersen, who at the time was in love with his friend Edward Cullen. Andersen wrote many affectionate letters to Collins that spoke about his love, but didn't always send them, the most intimate of which Andersen confesses he loves Collins with the sentiment of a woman, but the nature of his feelings must be kept secret. Collins ultimately rejected Andersen and married someone else, and in his grief by this loss, Andersen wrote the sorrowful tale of a little mermaid cast as a sexual outsider whose yearning for the prince results in inevitable failure to be part of his world.
No, yes, you can. Yes, no, I can't. Peter. Yes, you can. No, I can't. I'm nothing. No.
Best piece of advice I can give you, drop out of college. Drop out of college and go to your local corner store and ask how much. They'll say, how much for what? You say your whole business, and then you buy that business. Then go across the street and buy that business. And then do that 2 more times until you own every business at that intersection. And you know what that is called? That's called cornering the market. And everyone in the world could do this. Everyone in the world can own 4 businesses, and those 4 businesses can own 4 businesses, and those 4 businesses can own 4 businesses, and on and on and on until everyone in the world owns how many businesses? Infinite businesses. Infinite businesses, infinite passive income. People say that's impossible. Who would work at these businesses if everyone was an owner? Dogs and cats. Dogs and cats who walk upright and wear people clothes and speak with British accents. Oh, hello, Mr. Scruffles. Are you enjoying your work today? Oh, I am enjoying my work quite a lot, Mr. Billings. And I wake up every night covered in urine and sweat and crying. And you know why I'm crying? I'm crying because the world that I just described is impossible. It is impossible because of college. Drop out of college. And then go to my website, www.collegebepreventingdogsandcatsfromevolvingintooureemployees.squarespace.com. That's www.collegebepreventingdogsandcats.fromevolvingintooureemployees.squarespace.com.
It's always who can identify as a lesbian and never who can prevent the mass harassment of queer people in public. Get off of your fucking phones.
I genuinely believe that the word queer is probably one of the only successfully reclaimed slurs in at least recent history, and that's purely because the word itself was changed in usage from being a noun to being an adjective. Like when people use the word queer, they're using it as an identity and as an adjective to describe themselves. A queer person, queer studies, queer literature, stuff like that. And it actually has linguistic use outside of hurting people. One of the many reasons why I don't care about slur discourse is because usually it centers the interpretations that white queer people have about what slurs mean, because they try and model the usage of them after the N-word. But yeah, a slur isn't really reclaimed if you're still using it the same way that your oppressors used it.
And he says, our song is a slam and scream door. See that I'm the one who understands you. Been here all along, so why can't you see what I was thinking of? Chop everything now, meet me in the pouring. Remember when we broke up the first time? Saying this is it, I've had enough. Cause like, welcome to New York, it's been waiting for you. Welcome to New York, welcome to... He was a killer, first time that I saw him. One of these things is not like the others, like a rainbow with all of the colors. Baby doll, when I felt like I was an old cardigan under someone's bed, you put me on and said I'd come back stronger than a 90s trend.
When they say wheelchair accessible, Ada accessible ramp. Yeah. They said. Oh,
What is Ashkenormativity, and why should you care about it? It's the centering of Ashkenazi Jews racialized as white within conversations around the Jewish community. Byproduct of which is that Mizrahi Jews, Sephardic Jews, Ethiopian Jews, biracial and multiracial Jews like myself feel like we're at the margins of Jewish discourses. And this matters because the Jewish community is immensely diverse, but when we play into this narrative of Ashkenormativity, we erase those who don't fit that mold.
This is, in my opinion, the #1 thing holding America back. And it's not an issue like healthcare or education like you're probably expecting. It's that the vibes in America are trash because we collectively have a limiting belief about this country. And that limiting belief is that we couldn't do what every other developed nation has done and guarantee housing, healthcare, etc. Because the media, the same media that's owned by these corporations that's profiting off the status quo, is telling people that things can't get better. That we couldn't do what like every other developed nation has done. And so people have this limiting belief and this defeatist mindset. It's really sad to see. And I feel like as long as people think it's not possible and as long as they're not like demanding it from our leaders, it's not going to happen. If you found this topic interesting, I have a whole video about it on my YouTube channel that I just uploaded.
I want to talk about motivation. Okay. I've been struggling with making motivation. Did you say making motivation? Yeah. I don't think you know how motivation works. All right, are you ready? Yeah, let's see it. The boat is my attention, and the wind is my motivation, and obviously the wind blows the boat. So I generate the wind, and then I can direct the wind to steer the boat in the direction that I need to focus my motivation. You also don't know how sailboats work. Correct, I have no idea. You adjust the sails to steer the boat, not the wind. Yeah, I mean, I can still work with that. So I adjust the sails to steer the boat and point it in the direction that I need to point my motivation, which is based off of goals that I have in my life. But you also struggle with ADHD. ADHD distractions are based around dopamine drops, and I can steer my ADHD so I can choose what I'm getting distracted by. And again, not understanding how ADHD works. I updated mine, but updated. I learned a couple years ago that when I lose interest in my latest hobby and I start to get the itch to try something new, I let myself take a break. But instead of starting a new hobby, I watch TV or go to bed on time. Ugh. That's why it works. I get so bored that I start craving my last hobby. I've gotten to a point now where I can turn my interests on and off. So if I have an interest turned off, there's no dopamine. I'm steering it. This is armchair psychology at its finest. Absolutely. But back to motivation. When something slows me down or interrupts my momentum, I have to start making new wind. Test inertia. Yeah, I usually just create a sense of urgency, which helps me power through that. And there's definitely a limit to how much I can do this. So let's put a pin in this and we'll talk about that another time. When are we getting to the real problem then? I really hate doing things that I don't want to do, when I'm made to point the ship in a direction that doesn't line up with my goals. That's just part of being an adult, bucko. Part of being a complacent adult. But even still, I can usually figure out why I need to do something, and once I understand it, I can make myself want to do it. It is like a second tier want, so there's some energy loss between like the wind and the sails, but I understand why I need to continue to make motivation. You keep giving me problems and then telling me why they're not problems. I'm building to this. Sometimes I find out what the reason is, and it's a bad reason. Or no one can explain to me why it needs to be done. Either way, I'm wasting my time. I'm talking about things like checking boxes for productivity tracking variables, things that don't line up with how I do my job, because guess what? I'm autistic, and I don't do things like other people. When I'm wasting my time, I lose motivation to make motivation. So don't do those things. They're everywhere. Intake forms, meetings for the sake of meetings, small talk. There's so many pointless hoops in life just to exist, and a lot of times I just feel like a caged lion, like I'm never going to be set loose to actually see what I'm capable of. Okay. Is this because of your autism, or just what it's like being an adult at this point in history? You know, you could try actually helping me every once in a while.